you got to let the students use AI. It doesn't matter if it's high school or college. And I think personally, the younger, the better, because you have to learn how to use new technology. I mean, for me, it was unfortunately at 35 years old in my elementary days was using a computer. There was not a lot of writing in certain aspects and they would go back and forth, but this is what we use day to day. And if you're not an early adopter as a child, then in the future, you're going to run into issues, because that's the one big thing I hate about academics is the lack of actual appliance of what you're learning. It's so much theory. Like I remember when I was an engineering student, it was pencil to paper for statics, dynamics, thermodynamics, and everything else. And then you realize that once you get in the real world, you're just going to be doing everything on a computer. And I understand knowing the math and being able to break down everything and understanding it to that level, but repetition, adopting new tools, improving productivity and output, that's where we're at with the adoption of these chatbots. So this MIT technology review, ChatGPT is going to change education, not destroy it. 100% on board. Not on board with the fact that AI bans, and this one says will not work, but it says a fifth of universities already ban AI, Google and all that stuff. And I get it. I understand it. It's the active learning aspect. We'll get into actually what's happening in the workforce when active learning and responsible utilization of AI isn't actually being properly imputed. So when a student prompts a generative AI tool to write an essay for them, active learning is sacrificed, and as there is little intellectual, creative, or emotional interaction on the part of the students. This is just intellectual laziness, because you got to learn how to use it responsibly, and people are just taking shortcuts. But perhaps we adjust the way that students are learning and what future output and productivity is going to look like. And if I go down here, this is the importance. This is the best paragraph, I think, for the entirety of this article. Advanced chatbots could be used as a powerful classroom aid that makes lessons more interactive, teach students media literacy, generate personalized lesson plans, and save teachers time and administration and more, but also save students time on doing the little work. You got to learn to write, but can we increase the repetition? Can we move on, add additional lesson plans, whereas the time that it would take to create these essays could then be moved forward and displaced into other areas of learning. And yeah, there's going to be cognitive costs because we're really stubbing our toe. Neil deGrasse Tyson had mentioned on a podcast about putting everything in a timeline of the Gutenberg scale, like in the printing press, how long it took to go from just printing Bibles into actually mass production of books, the dissemination of information, newspapers. And it was just hundreds and hundreds of years. In the world of AI, the Gutenberg scale can be truncated quite a bit and consolidated, but we are still at the infancy and stubbing our toe. But we need to learn how to adapt to use it today because of things like this. Boston Consulting Group experiment finds that consultants using AI finished 12.2% more tasks on average, completed tasks 25.1% more quickly, and produced 40% higher quality results than those without. And it comes from this article that I always reference: Navigating the Jagged Technological Frontier, Field Experimental Evidence of the Effects of AI on Knowledge, Worker Productivity, and Quality. In this, they do A, B, C testing, and to different degrees, either you're not going to use AI, you're going to use it with no training, you're going to use it with training. And they found those with training were able to increase their productivity that resulted in this graph, these increase of 12.2 on average, completed tasks, and then 40% higher quality. Because then they were able to remove all of the administrative tasks, the tedious things, with the utilization of a chatbot, and then move on to more productivity and even more thinking and ideation, because they didn't have to worry about the time spent on writing out reports and whatnot. But there is a limit that Boston Consulting realized within this aspect. You really do have to be a subject matter expert. Have to be able to scrutinize the outputs from these chatbots. And if you don't, that's where this intellectual laziness becomes a real hamper on the ability to adopt things like chatbots. And that's what we really have to learn in an academic space and get people in the future that entering the workforce really know that AIs are not a replacement of your intellect. It is an assistant to help you increase productivity. There's actually a really good YouTube video that I'll put a link in the description, Bernard Marr, of this gentleman, Vlad Lukic, where this intellectual laziness had resulted in the fact that they weren't training up. It reduced the time to get people more productive, new employees into the workforce, but because they were intellectually lazy and not actually understanding the outputs, scrutinizing the outputs, learning from the outputs, they weren't learning at all. So then you, at some point, this return on the utilization of AI and productivity diminishes over time if you're not properly adopting and putting the right things in place to learn how to use it. And that's really what we need to do. Understand this new technology. I mean, calculators, for example. Again, engineering class, I couldn't even use a calculator. That's ridiculous. Not only are people using calculators, they're using computers with much more computational ability than a little Texas Instruments one that I'm sure we all remember, or at least if you're around my age that you remember. So learn how to live with the technology, and that is going to make everybody more successful.